Today I'm going to talk about the medical environment where ideas for new technologies first emerge. Your journey as students looking to develop solutions for relevant medical problems begins with an observational phase. In the observational phase, you take on the role of an investigator who is entering a clinical field that is filled with highly skilled and experienced care providers. You may be unfamiliar with many of the things that are related to the field you are investigating, but this gives you an opportunity to bring a fresh perspective to a field that may be operating under stagnant procedures and opinions on how care should be provided to the patients. Your unexperienced perspective helps you observe and take notes of everyday events in the setting that are usually overlooked by the experienced professionals. Even if you have some experience and understanding in the field you are observing, your perspective is unique because of your background as biomedical engineers. It is important that you maintain an unbiased opinion on how treatments should be administered in this early stage of the biodesign journey, because you should just be looking for potential problems and not solutions at this point. Technologies are rapidly evolving in hospitals, and this wouldn't be possible if people didn't take the time to observe and identify problems that really affected people in the healthcare space. In this talk, I will discuss how you enter the hospital environment, observe different situations, understand the perspective of stakeholders you observe, document it, and bring it back into a group setting to see if you have identified a significant medical problem that is worth addressing as engineers. You start off with observations after you have selected a medical field that you will investigate. You will have several options to choose from, such as neurosurgery, occupational rehabilitation, emergency medical services, general surgery and radiology, and many others. Some of these fields will interest you more than others, but it is important to remember that there is always room for technological improvement and innovation in all of them. You will be assigned to a team and have the opportunity to go out and find a more specific department within the general area of medicine to which you are assigned, based on your team's interests and the availability of your team to get an observation opportunity. After you have been assigned a team in a general field of medicine, you need to begin to do background research. Take note of the general treatments that are provided in the field so that you have an understanding of its scope. Does your field primarily perform outpatient or inpatient procedures? Is it diagnostic or interventional? What are the major diseases that it treats? Does your field refer patients to other clinics? Does it focus on early stage treatment or late stage treatment? Try to get an understanding of how patients get access and receive the treatment. Use internet resources for this stage and find out as much as you can before you ever step foot out into the medical space. This should all be done before the observation stage ever begins. This will help you get some background knowledge so that you aren't too confused when you begin observing, and this will also help prevent you from asking questions with easy answers. The observations you make in the hospitals will lead to identified problems. The identified problems will then be verified through more research before you can use them to define need statements. This presentation will focus on the observation stage. Later we will talk about the problem and need statement stages. If you've ever taken Anthropology 101, you have likely heard of the term ethnographic research. It is an interesting topic that can be applied to our work as investigative engineers. Ethnographic research is the study of the way people live in other societies, cultures, and geographic areas by means of immersing yourself directly in their environment with the goal of understanding their perspective. It's a hands-on, direct approach to get an understanding of a group of people external to the community of which you are a part of. It applies to anthropology when you're trying to understand how other populations live. As an engineer, it applies to the medical space when you're trying to go out there and appreciate and understand the perspective of all of the involved stakeholders, such as doctors, patients, nurses, payers, physical therapists, and even family members of the patients. You need to imagine yourself in their position and try to objectively understand how their decisions are made and why their emotional responses occur. An ethnographic approach will help give you a better overall understanding of the space you are now working in, and should reduce biases you are bringing with you into the observations. In this example, if you want to be a good art historian, and you're just a student or a professional, you can get a vicarious understanding of a work or artist by going into an art history textbook. But no good art historian is going to have a good idea of how an artist created their works by just studying two-dimensional representations of the work on flat printed pages. What you really want to do is go to the art museum and places where the artist grew up, and you try to understand the context of how the artist developed over time and the outputs of the artist over time within this context. If you are a tourist looking for ideas for your next vacation, you might use online pictures for inspiration. I know Google Street View is an amazing tool you can use to explore almost anywhere in the world. You can look around in any direction within an environment that seems three-dimensional. This may make you feel like you're really there, but you're not really immersing yourself in the actual environment. If you want to experience the Eiffel Tower, the best thing is to just go there. That's where you will learn things you would never be exposed to with an indirect experience like Street View. Observations are the basis of everything. It's the first stage of this ethnographic experience and a way to identify problems that are really affecting people. Without observations, you don't identify problems, and then you're not going to know what your stakeholders are going to need you to address. It's really the basis of everything, and you need to immerse yourself in the environment. Go out to doctors' offices, nursing homes, pain management clinics, and any other spaces related to your field. There are several inputs in the observational stage that help you move into the problem identification stage. You can begin the process with indirect observations that can be found online. You can watch videos of surgeries online and see videos of what the care providers will experience on a daily basis. These methods should only be part of your observations that get you warmed up for your trips out into the clinics yourself. Literature articles and reviews are also a great input to help identify problems in the observation phase. My favorite database for academic literature related to medicine and technology is PubMed. Here you can find papers on all of the spaces. This is a good resource for finding review papers which can help you summarize the current technologies used to treat a particular condition. At some stages in your project, you may find papers that help you find statistics showing the magnitude of the problem you have identified, and you could use this information to build up a market size using a bottoms-up approach. As students, you have full access to this database, and you should keep an organized folder containing all of the relevant PDFs you find here. The other major input is stakeholder interviews. Listen to what people are saying to each other and to you during your observations and interviews. Conversations in hallways or over lunch are all data inputs you should record in your notebooks. Communicate these observations to your group by documenting them in a place that your entire team can access. All of these observational inputs help you build up a list of potential problems that will eventually be filtered down after verification. The problems that emerge as truly significant will be translated into need statements that you will use to develop your project later on. In each field of medicine, there are terms that will be used often that you have never heard before. You should try to understand the big terms before you go out into the field. Here I have listed some of the more general terms that sound similar to other words. Try to understand the most basic terms because if you ask basic questions about terms, you may be wasting people's valuable time in the hospital. Always be mindful that you can always write down terms and then look them up later. Take the time to look them over and build up a term list over time that you can begin to use in your vocabulary when you're conducting interviews with professionals. You might observe patients who are seeking care. These are the patients who haven't received treatment yet at the earliest stages. You might begin observing at the stage where patients are receiving care at the hospital. Or you might be observing patients who are recovering from care after their treatment. The problems you identify could be related to any of the 3 stages of a patient's experience. As part of a team with a strategic focus, you will have to narrow the scope of the projects you are willing to select. You will likely select a project that involves just one of these 3 stages, but your solution within the single stage will hopefully make life easier for the stakeholders in the other stages as well.